my daughter on her way to school for her first full week since lockdown, and like most parents, I thought it meant a step closer to normality. What's it like being back at school, Tessie? Are you enjoying it? But new COVID rules are going to hit family life hard, from visiting grandparents to hosting birthday parties. Many parents are complaining about a lack of clarity over the new guidelines, so I spoke to someone who would know the answers. Hi Rosa, thanks so much for doing this. So these new rules that Boris Johnson has announced has put a bit of a spanner in the works in terms of our family activities. I'm married with 3 children and that's obviously 5 people, which doesn't give us much wriggle room. So can I ask you about a few specifics?
Yeah.
So first of all, in terms of seeing grandparents, what are we allowed to do?
Well, my understanding is that it would be fine for my family to see my parents because there's 4 in my household. I've got 2 children, so we can have my parents to stay. My brother has 3 children, and so there's 5 in his household, so he technically can't have our parents to stay. However, my brother could go to the pub with 5 friends from 5 different households. That would be okay, but it wouldn't be okay for him to have his parents to stay because there's 5 in his own household, taking the numbers to 7. So there are some what appear to be contradictions or perhaps imperfections in some of these rules.
So are there any exceptions to this rule? So let's say if you didn't meet anyone else and you only met grandparents, therefore you're forming a kind of support bubble around all of you.
Yes, the government has said that support bubbles are exempt from these new rules. So if you were, say, a single parent of 4 children, so there were 5 in your household, but then you formed a bubble with your 2 parents, that would take you up to 7. But I think that would still be okay because you would be one bubble. And equally, if you have 5 children, you're not going to have to get rid of one of your children so that you can have under 7 people in the house. That would be slightly dystopian. But I don't think if there's 6 in your bubble, you could actually see anybody else from outside of that.
It's all quite confusing, isn't it, in terms of these bubbles?
The idea of the most recent changes is that they try and eliminate some of that confusion and they make it easier for the police to also enforce some of these rules. Whether this will actually eliminate confusion, I don't know, because already there seem to be some areas which aren't clear.
My 5-year-old talks about her birthday party on a near daily basis. What's the situation there?
You wouldn't be able to host very many. If there's 5 in your household already, then no. If you wanted to have a party in your house, you could invite 1 person. Even if your daughter is at school with a class of 29 other children, you wouldn't be able to have more than 1 of those children to your house. I suppose you could technically go out somewhere with her and, what would that be, 4 friends, if just 1 parent took them. But yes, you can't do a proper children's party, which may come as a relief to some of us.
Definitely. It seems strange, though, that they can form an education bubble so they can meet in a classroom, but those same children can't then meet at a birthday party.
So yes, it seems contradictory that you could let your child be in school with 29 other children, but you couldn't then see many of those children out of school. However, if you're seeing them out of school, it means the parents are mixing as well. It means that you might not be in a sort of COVID secure space, which schools have been turned into.
And outside of school, things like soft play centres and swimming pools, we know took ages to reopen. Now they finally reopened. Can I still take my kids to those kind of places?
Yes, there is an exemption for sporting activities as long as they're done in a COVID secure environment. So swimming and football and gymnastics, tennis, these things technically can continue.
And as parents, I think we've all had some slightly awkward situations, for instance, bumping into groups of friends in parks where obviously children naturally kind of gravitate towards each other. What kind of thing would you recommend in that situation?
Well, it's difficult with children, isn't it? Because it's very hard to explain to the young ones that these rules have changed again. So while you could do this during the summer, now you can't do it. Children are very good at adapting. They're very resilient.
Do you have any sympathy for parents who feel like these new rules are going to make their family life more difficult, but actually what really needs to happen is a clampdown on young professionals, people in their 20s and 30s.
I do, but I think it's very problematic when you start targeting certain demographics and saying, you are responsible for these infections, we need to crack down on you as opposed to this group over here. I think the blame game isn't a good one to get into.
Absolutely. Great. That pretty much covers it for me. Is there anything else that we've missed out that you'd like to add?
I suppose one of the main things families are going to be worried about is Christmas, isn't it? Which is obviously very upsetting if we're facing a situation now where we can't all gather together at Christmas, and that does seem likely given that we're being told these rules are going to be in place for several months. As much as the police can enforce the rules in public places, they're not going to be knocking on people's doors and asking, are there more than 6 people celebrating Christmas in your house today? So what this means for the next few months, I guess, remains to be seen. But I think a lot of families are feeling pretty downhearted about what's going on at the moment.